I'm going to show you how to make a Mickey Mouse Easter egg holder. I'm going to make it with the SVG file. So I'm going to go click on my upload button. And then I am going to go to where I saved the SVG file. You can see when I get to this screen, there's only one option to save as cut image. This is how you know you're using a true SVG file. It will always default and only give you the option to save it as a cut image. If you're using an image, you would have the option to either save it as a cut image or save it as a print then cut once you clean it up. But we don't even have that option here because we're using a true SVG file. That's because an actual file contains the data that tells the Cricut colors, layers, outlines, shapes, all of the information. If you don't understand the difference between a true SVG file and an image, that's okay. I feel like there's a lot of people in the Cricut world that don't understand this. So make sure you go to my site, shawnmosh.com, and in the search bar, type SVG. And you're going to find an article I did telling you what an SVG is, what it's not, and where you can find some free ones. All right, let's get back to this project. I can click upload now, and that's it. This is ready to click on and add to my canvas. Again, this is why I say use true SVG files. All right, so it brought in all my different colors and layers, and the whole image is grouped together. When it's grouped together, that means I can click on just one part of the image and it moves the whole thing around at one time. And this is nice for if you needed to resize this at all, you'd be able to resize everything together in relation to everything. For this project, we are going to want a score line right here on this base piece to help fold it. So I am going to go over here and click ungroup. And then I'm going to click on this base piece. And you can see now I can select just that one base piece. I'm going to click on my shapes button and add a score line. When I click on this base piece, I can see that the width of it is almost 3 inches. So just for ease, I'm going to click on the score line and make that 3 inches. It doesn't really matter if the score line is longer or wider than your piece that you're scoring on, because the score line is just going to create an indent in your cardstock. Once I have the score line the length I want, I'm going to go here to rotation and rotate it 90 degrees. And now I can just position that right where I want it. And it's going to be, you want it going from like this corner point to this corner point. And it's okay if it goes a little over the ends. That looks pretty darn good if you ask me. So now I'm going to click on that score line again and right click with my computer mouse and go duplicate. The other way to duplicate would be to click on this button up here. Duplicate makes a second copy. It's like doing copy and paste all in one move. So now I move it down there. Perfect. The last step I'm going to do is select all 3 of these items. So the 2 score lines and the base piece. And then I'm going to click attach down here in the lower right corner. Attach holds placement and position. So now what I've done is I've told the Cricut, make sure you put those score lines exactly right there. If I had not attached and I clicked make it, my score lines would have shown up on one cutting mat, while my base piece would have been on a totally separate cutting mat. So this keeps everything connected and the placement. That's it. It's it's ready to make now. So I can click make it. Because everything is divided into layers and by the different colors, the Cricut's automatically going to put everything that's the same color on the same mat. So here's all my gray pieces. Then here's the whites of his eyes, the black base piece. Here's his face. And there's all the little pink pieces for inside the ears and such. So you can see also it tells me the order to load the different colors of cardstock onto my cutting mat. Right here, it's telling me first it's going to score. So I'm going to insert my scoring stylus. If you have a newer machine, you might be using the scoring wheel. And then that's going to come across and score those dashed lines. Then the Cricut's going to kind of pause and say, okay, now we're ready to cut. And then it will come back and cut. So I'm going to click continue. And it's going to connect to my machine. I have the Cricut machine that has the dial on the actual machine, so I have it set to Cardstock Plus. I'm using a little bit stiffer cardstock, and that's why I went with that option. If you have a newer machine, you will have a choice here to pick your materials. I think it starts off by showing you some popular ones, but then you can browse all your materials. But right here is where it's telling me, make sure you have your scoring stylus in there. Then you're going to push the double arrow button to load your cutting mat, and then press the C button to score. Then you'll see that the machine pauses so that we can make sure we have our fine point blade in there. After the cutting mat is loaded, you will see that the C button starts to blink. So when I press that, it's going to score first. And you can see I have a scoring stylus in here. And it's just dragging that stylus across there. It makes a little indent, which you'll see later when I assemble things. Now it pauses, and I can put the blade in. And then I press that blinking C again, and now it's going to cut. Now that everything's cut, I can start to assemble the pieces. I'm going to start with this base piece. And you can see those score lines in there. So I'm just going to use my fingers and kind of give it a little bit of a fold to kind of get it started. And then I am going to come back in with a tool called the bone folder. And that helps you get a nice crisp line. If you do not have a bone folder, honestly, before I had this, I used to use like an old credit card or gift card. You just basically need something to run across there and really press down the fold. You could sometimes use your finger, but it's just, see how it gives it that nice crisp, hard fold line? So that's going to make like this little table that we can put our Easter egg on. Now we can start to assemble all of the pieces for the main part of our project. I am using my Cricut spatula tool to lift off the pieces off the cutting mat. I like to just get the spatula under there and get it started, and then I can just slide things off. You will notice that the ear separated on the left hand side from the main part of the hood of this little bunny outfit, but that's fine. I can glue it back in place. And now I'm just kind of looking how it's going to center in the center of the opening for the egg holder. And then I'm going to apply some tape a few places. I like to use a combination of a tape runner and my Zig glue pen. The Zig glue pen comes in a few different sizes, and actually I own a few just because if I'm doing something with really tiny pieces, I want the fine point. This one is the chisel tip, so then I can almost draw or write with this pen right where I need the glue to go. So you can see some of those skinnier areas, I can just kind of scribble the glue in there. And to get more glue to come through, you shake it, shake the pen, and then you kind of tap the tip to the surface and it gets going. All right, so now let me position things because I'm going to really pay attention to the egg opening because I want that to all line up nice. And then really the outline, if you have a little bit more black outline showing on one side or the other, nobody's going to notice. So get the egg opening right, and then you can start to tweak things. Like, see how I'm kind of playing with this ear to get it in the right spot. All right, that looks really good. So now that part's done. Let's put Mickey's face in here. The way I made this SVG file, I cut openings through Mickey's face because at first I made it a full face piece and then I was going to apply the little eyes, nose, and mouth over the top. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, since those are going to be black, if I make the holes go through the face, then you see the black from underneath. And that means less pieces we have to place. So I decided to make it easier for you. Next, I'm going to grab my pin pen. This is actually used for weeding vinyl. You can see there's a little pin sticking out of it. But here's a little trick that I use when I'm doing tiny cardstock pieces. If you apply the glue where you want the piece to go, and then you use your pin pen, you can actually stab those little pieces and place them right where you want them. I find this a lot easier because you have that pen to hold on to. Before owning a pin pen, I used to do this with just a straight pin from my sewing box, but now that I have this pen, I absolutely love it. So now you can see how his face came together really easily without a lot of extra pieces. So now I'm just going to continue on adding the rest of the pieces in the same manner, grabbing the centers of the ears. I like to kind of hold them in place to kind of eyeball my position, add some glue, stick them in place. And then I'm going to use the pin pen again to fill in his tongue and the pink parts of his feet. now it's time to attach everything to the base. So you can see the bottom edge of the bunny matches that bottom edge of the base. So I'm going to flip the bunny over, and then I'm going to use my Zig glue pen again and add some glue onto that bottom flap where it folds over. I'm going to turn the whole thing around and line up my bottom edges. And I just smooth it down to make sure I have a good secure hold. Now I can do the same thing with the other side. And first I always like to take the pieces and lay them on top of each other, because there's nothing worse than gluing things together and realizing you had the back piece backwards. So make sure things line up before you use the glue. So now I line up this side and attach that. And once it's all folded back up, you can see it makes like a little table. Now I want those earpieces to stay put. I don't want them flopping around loose. So I'm going to come back in with a little tape runner and just put some tape there, and then line up the tips of the ears and secure them down. And while I was doing this, one ear shifted, so I just kind of popped the double sticky tape back open and started over. Now smooth them down so that everything sticks, and there he's done. I just gotta grab an Easter egg and pop him inside. And let me show you how you do that. I come in from the side, and you can do this with an actual egg, a plastic egg, or those Cadbury cream-filled eggs if you wanted to. Before you go, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. I love to hear from you.